What's going on, my dudes? James here, living life from dusk till dawn. It's actually the eve of the new year, 2025. It's going to be a little while till this video comes out, so welcome to the past. Anyways, I'm going to be doing some work on my 2012 Mazdaspeed 3. We've been doing a lot of upgrades recently. I finally got the cold air intake, which allows me to kind of continue on with the upgrades that I've slowly been stockpiling in my garage. So today is nothing super insane. I have to take my bumper off. So I was thinking that I would go ahead and install a new crash bar on the car. This crash bar is specifically from Graveyard Performance, I believe is the company name. And this is going to allow me to have a new mounting point for my front mounted intercooler. So the stock crash bar doesn't have a way for you to mount anything to it. It also looks disgusting. So we're going to pull that off and we're going to put on a Graveyard Performance crash bar. Also, since my bumper's off, I'm going to be doing something else, which I don't necessarily know if this is going to make that much of a difference, but it might be cool, it might not. Here is the Graveyard Performance front crash bar. There's really not much to it. It's a bar and it's meant for crashing or protecting you in a crash. But this thing is beefy, it looks really good, it's powder coated black, I like it. It's got a couple of dings, a little bent right there. No big deal. So we're gonna get that installed today. This is just kind of a little gimmick. I thought that this was a neat idea and I wanted to give it a shot. So I have here a carbon fiber little intake thing. So basically, this is actually not even meant for a Mazdaspeed 3, it's meant for a Nissan 350Z, maybe a 370Z, I don't know. But basically, the front bumper has a little intake cowl that connects up to the cold air intake and the cob intake box. I don't really know how much airflow actually goes in through that portion, especially now that the box isn't sealed. The old intake kind of forced all the induction to come in through the front of the bumper, but now that I have that cob cold air intake in there, it can draw it in from the side of the engine bay as well. So I figured installing something like this is going to get a little bit more airflow while moving, which might force a little bit more air into the box from the outside or the exterior of the car, rather than drawing air around the inside of the engine bay where it's all hot. I don't know if that's really going to make a difference. Probably isn't going to make any at all, but I figured we'll get this thrown in anyways because it kind of looks cool. So basically I just got 4 little holes that are drilled out here, so we're going to cut a hole in the bumper after I pick my spot. We're going to slide this into the place and then just bolt it down. Hopefully it looks cool. I don't know. So I'm not going to have a crazy amount of camera angles for you because my garage door is closed. I might open that later just so that I can actually move around and stuff, but I figured I'd work with what I got for now. My cat's out here. She's not an outdoor cat. Anyways, first off, obviously we gotta open up the hood and then we gotta take the front bumper off. So to take off the front bumper, I'm not gonna show you every little detail because I've modified my car a little bit. I do not have a splash guard underneath, but if you do, there's somewhere between 6 and 10, 8 or 10 millimeter bolts that run through the splash guard. And then you've got a couple that go into the fender wells that you have to undo, so I have to undo those. You have to take off a little bit underneath. I've got this little silicone, like a radiator cowl or something. So I gotta pull that off, and then there's a couple of screws underneath here that you gotta take off. And then also, I don't have the little side clips. I got little buttons, you can't really see those, but I pop those and then I'll be able to take off the bumper completely from there. Don't forget that you have lights in your bumper. You have fog lights. I see them. I don't think my cat's on the screen, but she's just looking around. But yeah, if you have fog lights in your car, don't forget to unplug the fog lights from the wiring harness. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of yanking on some cables. But I'm going to go ahead and get the bumper pulled off, and then we'll look at it from there. Can't see too well. Here's what we're looking at. Grab the phone. Turn the flashlight on for you. So that is our front crash bar. So we have 4 bolts here that are holding onto the little crush zone behind the crash bar. So these 4 on each side are going to need to come out. And then this one right here in the center, that's connected to whatever this little brace support is here. I have pretty much every bolt out for the front brace. Basically, we have a, what is this, a 14 millimeter? Yeah, 14 millimeter to take out all of the ones that are going along the front of the brace here. And then all the rest of them are a 10 mil. But the issue I've run into, this little plastic piece right here on both sides, I guess is very susceptible to rust. So there's two bolts on it, two 10 mils, and that inner one is spinning freely. Now that's not as big of an issue because I can just bend it out of the way because it's plastic, right? And that'll reveal this bolt right here, also a 10 mil. But if you can see by the sheer volume of rust on it, the back of that bolt has also spun freely, and it's on both sides. So, angle grinder, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to do that right now. So I think I'm going to move on to the bumper trimming and cutting phase, and then I'll get to an angle grinder later when I'm feeling a little bit more saucy. But if we look right here, the air in is pulled from right there. So that tiny little slot is what used to provide all of the air through the bumper into the intake. But as I mentioned, this whole side is now open, which means all this air can get pulled from inside of the engine bay, which is cold air intake, so it kind of defeats the purpose. So there's a tube that runs to the box, to the intake portion that comes out to right here, and I want to add that little funnel in order to have more opening for the air to get forced in, since it's no longer going to be drawn in by vacuum because this box is now open on this side. Hopefully you're tracking or following what I'm talking about. So I'm going to slide the bumper back over into place real quick so I can get a general idea of where the piece is going to go. Then I'm going to use cardboard or paper or something to create a little template for trimming. And then we'll just line it up and we'll trim. You know, conveniently enough, there's a spot already lined up here. Let me show you. Right here is where the intake is. And it's mirrored on both sides, which is interesting because I don't see, there's no like air in on that side. All you can see is the intake pipe. So this one on the passenger side, I think, is the only one that's really going to matter. So, point of no return. Honestly, that fits really well. So now I need to mark out and drill the holes that the rest of this is going to get mounted to, and then I'll have to figure out what screws I'm going to be using to attach this. But there you have it, fully installed. Well, kind of. Those are temporary screws. I'll have to come up with a more permanent solution. And I think when I do the whole pull out the grill insert part, I'm going to take the rest of this apart and put actual bolts with like nuts on the back. But for now, this will work just fine. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good. And as you can see, it is a straight shot into the induction portion of the air intake, which is going to get, hopefully, a little bit more airflow forced in now that that is open. Looks really good. Well, this next day, the garage is open now. So it turns out I do have a rivet or a rib nut gun. And if you guys don't know what a rib nut is, basically it's a rivet. And if you don't know what a rivet is, it's a piece of metal that basically pinches two things together. So I have a rib nut which pinches two things together or just installs in a hole. And it creates like a threaded insert so that you can put a screw in. So my thought is, I'm gonna go ahead and use my angle grinder, and I'm gonna cut off the head of this bolt right here, the rusted out one. And then I should be able to take the crash bar off, and I can just use like a punch or a pin or something and just smack the other side into the frame. And then I'll clean up the area, obviously, throw down some rust reformer. I don't know how strong that joint is, but I don't think it should matter that much, unless I get into an accident. Anyways, then I'm gonna install a rib nut, just like a M6 or an M8 rib nut. I already have one that actually fits the same screws that went in there. I'm gonna replace the screws, but it's not gonna change the size of the threads or anything like that. Anyways, I wanna clean this up a little bit because it's all rusted and disgusting, so. Damn. Here is an update. I have sanded down these the front support plates. I'm gonna use some tape or like brown paper to kind of close off this area so I can get a nice coat of rust reformer on it. Looking at it, I don't know if it's overspray or what, but there is like a gray on the frame in places in exactly the spot where the rust is. So I don't know if that means that this has been repaired once before or what, but either way, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a good coat on both sides. This right here is the hole where that bolt was that broke free. It kind of makes sense that it did because this is like fiberglass and plastic. I don't think I'm gonna be able to fit a rib nut in there because that hole is now massive. But if we hold up the bar here, that is the exact hole that I need to use. So that's unfortunate. Also, I need to have spacers in here. What? So I went ahead and I actually had some bolts that I had bought for the Tacoma and they didn't work. So I just kept them instead of returning them. And I'm glad that I did because they work great for the crash bar. Now I don't have those spacers that I was talking about. The ones that would fit in here. So these are the bolts that I just told you about. These are not tightened down. Like I gave them a quarter turn of snugness. But I did email the company just saying, hey, I bought this secondhand and I was hoping that you might have hardware kits that you could just sell that come with those spacers. So slight problem, if you look at the bracket, what I had been talking about is this not following the frame line right there, which on the old crash bar, it does, obviously. So if you look inside the bumper, there's a piece of foam that runs along the inside. I was gonna take this out. Now I realize I have to take this out, but you can see that that foam also follows the curvature. So this needs to come out in order for it to clear that, and that'll just open up some space. Sweet. So what I did just there is I was adjusting the height of the latch. Is when I installed or reinstalled the latch after getting those brackets nice and cleaned up, I put it all the way down at the bottom, and it was just barely low enough that the latch could engage, but I couldn't push it down to lock. So what I did is I brought it all the way up to the top, and then the gap in the front was way too high. If you set the hood latch at as far down as the bracket will go, and then bring it up by like 1/8 of an inch, like just a sliver of height, then it'll be perfect. So yeah, came out really good. Put it in, and oh, there we go. I totally forgot, so I do have that extra silicone mat that's in there, so I might need to raise the hood latch a little bit more. Maybe, or maybe I won't. Check it out. That actually looks really cool. I'm a big fan of that. Most people are going to look at that and be like, what the hell is that? But I will know. And you will know. Hopefully that actually does something. I don't know if it will. So I am not the first person to do this to their Mazdaspeed 3, but I am the first person to place it on the passenger side of the bumper. And I did that because I wanted to keep rainwater from kicking in and potentially soaking the intake filter while I'm driving. And the second reason, if I were to put that on the driver's side, it wouldn't do any of that at all. It would blow air into the engine bay, but it would, for the most part, completely miss the intake filter, because on the other side of the same spot on the driver's side is the little black silicone intake tube that runs to the cowl or the induction port within the front bumper. So those Allen keyed head, like button head type screws that are a black color, I think just look a lot better. So we'll go ahead and look at it here. As you can see, and I assume your opinion will follow mine, it does look a lot better. I did scuff the side here though, so I gotta buff that out a little bit. But no big deal, because eventually the bumper is just gonna end up getting wrapped. But that looks pretty cool. I'm actually a big fan of the way that looks. The other worry that I kind of had, and I've got it a little bit, is how sturdy the carbon fiber piece was going to be. So when I tightened it down to force it to the bumper, I was worried about how the reflections and stuff that were coming through were going to look. And they're a little bit warped in the corners next to the screws where I really kind of had to tighten it down. But anyways, yeah, there it is. We have the new crash bar installed, and then the little carbon fiber air scoop thing. With that intake though, the carbon fiber cutout right there, something that I noticed that's actually super wild. I think it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, which theoretically it should. So as we had kind of already talked about, having this cold air in here, whenever I'm under boost, all of the air is getting drawn in to the path of least resistance, which is right here, which is in the engine bay. And this tube right here isn't really doing much to actually draw suction. Now when you had the original factory air box in here, this was all sealed, right? Which means all the suction came from this direction. But now that I have this in here, while I'm driving and going fast, the air is being forced into the intake and down that tube right there, forcing more cold air over here into the intake side of this. So I had a brain blast. Instead of creating a bracket to run from the hole that's supposed to be where the crash bar is mounted to down to the one that's underneath it, because that's going to be kind of annoying, why not just stick a piece of metal behind it with a hole in it and put a riv nut in? So I can stick a riv nut in the hole of the metal bracket piece, not a bracket, but just the metal chunk that I have behind the plastic that's all, you know, bored out. And then I can just thread a bolt through just like that. And then I'll be able to screw it in and unscrew it without having a like a wrench on the backside, which is one of the biggest things that annoys the hell out of me, is when you have a bolt and a nut and you have to hold it from both sides in order to tighten that shit. I do have this piece of, I'm assuming, steel. I ended up swapping out these posts because these look disgusting, and then those ones are all nice, pretty, and clean. So I got them all swapped out, and I've got extra metal now. And I was actually kind of debating whether or not I wanted to use these big holes in a rib nut, or see if I can just reuse these small holes that already have tack welded screw thread on it. But too much difficulty, I have prevailed. Right. Yeah. So the last thing for this project, I emailed Graveyard Performance, and I told them that I had bought this crash bar secondhand, and I didn't have any of the hardware. So they hooked me up with a hardware kit. That's on the way. Should be here in a couple of days. Well, my dudes, let me not knock things onto the floor. I finally got a package. And this is the parts from Graveyard Performance. Some freaking awesome bolts, man. You know? Like, they're zinc coated, I would assume. They're kind of like musty dusty. They look really cool. And then the spacers themselves are just these little 5 to 7/8 of an inch spacers. And so these are what are going to mount right on here for the bracket. So now I just got to back these bolts out. And then I'm probably going to keep with the same ones that I have there because those are flanged. And then these ones are just regular bolts with a washer. But I kind of like the flanged look. So I think I'm going to use the flanged and stick these in my box for use later. Get them, the spacers installed. And, oh god, I dropped it into my fan. No! Anyways, I'm going to start with the driver's side. I didn't torque these down at all, and I'm probably just going to people torque them and call it a day. I assume those bolts that I used are going to hold up well against like rust and stuff. If not, I have spares. Meh. I don't know if it was really in this video. It's been like 2 weeks, by the way, since the last clips. If you can't tell, I'm in a jacket because it's 34 degrees outside. But I put a rib nut into the edge of the bumper so I can bolt the fender liner into the front bumper rather than using those stupid plastic clips. And in fact, that might be something I do in the future too, like on this core support. Bitch. Is putting rib nuts in here so I no longer have to use these plastic pieces, because honestly I'd rather just sling in an 8mm bolt than have to deal with all of these. But yeah, so obviously that wasn't a super difficult install. Something I bring up all the time in my channel is that I'm just a dude in a garage that's working on his car. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited to do the things that I do. And I'm not willing to pay the extra dollar for somebody else to do it for me. You know, somebody else may be able to do a better job. They may be able to do a more efficient job, get it done faster, cleaner. But I don't care about that. I'm learning about my car. I'm learning how to use a wrench. You know, when I first started doing this, I barely knew what a wrench was. And now I'm swapping out crash bars and stuff. Not that that's difficult, but you get the idea. Run to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy a $20 socket set, and you can knock this out in an afternoon. Now, if you're like me and your car is covered in rust, you may also have to spend $100 on an angle grinder so that you can angle grind off the nuts. But the tools that I haven't acquired in a day. You know, I've been building my toolkit for the last 6 years. And it's gotten to where it is now. Every time that I find that I need something else, I go out and I buy it and I add it. So it's just little bits at a time, you know, little $20 to $60 purchases, and eventually you have a crap ton of things, and they're all super useful. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope you've learned something. I hope you have, if you're new to the channel and you're just discovering my content now, I hope that you have enjoyed being here and hanging out with me. And I hope that you come back and see me again. So right now I'm going through a pretty good string of speed upgrades on the channel. So every other week I post a vehicle related thing, whether that's my Mazda or it's my Tacoma. So if you're here for the speed content, then please come back in 2 weeks, because there's going to be another video, and it's most likely rhymed with front mounted intercooler. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. I'm really tired, guys. I've been up for the last 24 hours. Don't forget to live from dusk till dawn, even if it's the middle of winter.